The lights flickered on the emergency station as Ambassador Kethfer rushed through the metal hallways. His 6 insect-like legs clicked against the floor with each hurried step. Behind him, other Zentari officials moved with the same panic. Their homeworld was dying and they were running out of time. "How many ships do we have left?" Kethfer asked as he entered the main control room. The circular chamber was filled with floating screens showing star maps and battle reports. Of the screens showed red warnings. "Only 12 defense ships remain," replied Commander Yilthek, her antenna drooping with sadness. "The Vex machines destroyed 3 more yesterday. Our colonies on Zentor 2 and Zentor 3 have gone silent." Kethfer felt his heart sink. Zentari had always been a peaceful people. They had never needed to fight wars or build weapons. For thousands of years they had lived in harmony with nature on their beautiful garden worlds. But now the Vex Collective had found them. The Vex were different from any enemy the galaxy had ever seen. They were not alive in the way most beings understood life. They were machines with a single goal: to consume everything. They turned planets into factories and living beings into parts for their endless army. "Sir, we are receiving another message from the Galactic Council," said a young technician at his station. "They say they cannot send military help. The Council has no army." Kethfer closed his 4 eyes in despair. The Galactic Council was made up of peaceful races like his own. They had laws and meetings and long discussions about problems. But they had no weapons and no soldiers. They had never needed them before. "What about the other star nations? Have any of them responded to our calls for help?" Kethfer asked. "The Altarian Republic sent medical supplies," Yilthek reported. "The Crystal Kingdoms offered to take refugees. The Void Swimmers said they would pray for us, but none of them will fight." The truth was simple and terrible. Every advanced civilization in their part of the galaxy had followed the same path. As the Zentari, they had grown beyond war and violence. They had learned to solve problems with words and wisdom. It had made them good neighbors, but poor fighters. "Sir," another technician called out from across the room. "The long-range sensors are picking up more Vex ships. A massive fleet is heading toward our home world. They will arrive in 6 days. 6. Deus Kethfer looked at the tactical display showing their remaining forces. 12 small defense ships against hundreds of Vex war machines. It would not even be a battle. It would be an execution. "Must be something we can do," he whispered to himself. "Some option we have not tried." Council Director Yulinara entered the room at that moment. The tall being moved on many tentacles, each one twitching with nervous energy. Her species was known throughout the galaxy for their wisdom and memory. If anyone had an answer, it would be her. "Director," Kethfer said with a slight bow. "Do you have news from the Council?" "I do," Yulinara replied, her voice like wind through metal tubes. "But it is not good news. The Council has voted to evacuate as many Zentari as possible to safe worlds. They believe your people cannot be saved." "No." Kethfer slammed his hand against the nearest console. "We cannot abandon our worlds. This is our home. Our ancestors are buried in this soil. Our children were born here." Yulinara was quiet for a long moment. Her many tentacles twisted around each other as she thought. "There is one possibility," she said finally, "but it is dangerous and has never been tried." "What is it?" Kethfer asked. "The ancient emergency protocols," Yulinara explained. "From the early days of the Council, when first contact with new species was more common, there is a system that sends out a wide-range distress signal to any civilization that might be listening. But we know all the civilizations in this region," Commander Yilthek said. "None of them can help us. This signal goes much further." Yulinara continued. "Beyond our normal communication range, 2 unexplored regions of the galaxy. If there are any unknown civilizations out there, they would receive our message." Kethfer thought about this. It was a desperate plan. It would be calling for help from complete strangers. These unknown beings might be friendly, or they might be even worse than the Vex. "What are the chances that someone will respond?" he asked. "Unknown," Yulinara admitted. "The signal would need to reach a civilization advanced enough for space travel but also willing to fight. Most advanced species have moved beyond warfare, like us. But not all?" Kethfer pressed. In theory, there could be species that developed differently. Worlds where conflict shaped their growth instead of peace. Such beings would be ... dangerous. But they might also be our only chance. Kethfer looked around the control room. His people were depending on him to find a solution. The screens still showed red warnings. The Vex fleet was still coming. In 6 days, everything he'd ever known would be gone unless he acted. "Send the signal," he said firmly. Yulinara nodded and moved to the main communication array. Her tentacles danced over the controls with practiced skill. "The message will include our location, the nature of the threat, and a plea for military assistance. It will broadcast on all frequencies for the next 72 hours. Will anyone hear it?" Kethfer wondered aloud. "We can only hope," Yulinar replied, as she activated the system far across the galaxy. In a small monitoring station, orbiting a blue and green world called Earth, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Brooks was finishing her night shift. She had been tracking radio signals from deep space for 3 years. Most nights were quiet, with only the background noise of stars and cosmic radiation. But tonight was different. Her instrument suddenly came alive with an unknown signal. It was complex and clearly artificial. Someone was trying to communicate. Lisa sat up in her chair and began recording the transmission. As she listened to the strange patterns of sound, she realized she was hearing something incredible. This was first contact with an alien civilization, and they were asking for help. Lisa Brooks stared at her computer screen in amazement. The alien signal had been broadcasting for 6 hours now, and her translation program was finally making sense of it. What she read made her blood run cold. The message was a desperate plea for help. An entire civilization was about to be destroyed by something called the Vex Collective. The aliens described their attackers as machines that consumed worlds and turned living beings into spare parts. They had already lost 3 planets, and would lose everything in just a few days. Lisa grabbed her phone and called her supervisor. "Commander Peterson, you need to get down here right now. We have a situation." 20 minutes later, the small monitoring station was filled with military officials and scientists. They all crowded around Lisa's workstation, reading the translated message over and over again. "Are we certain this is real?" asked General Harrison, the head of Earth's United Defense Council. "This could be some kind of test or trick." "The signal is coming from deep space, sir," Lisa replied. 47 light years away. The mathematical patterns are too complex to be fake. Someone out there really needs our help. Dr. Alex Turner, Earth's top expert on theoretical alien life, was studying the message carefully. "Look at how they describe themselves," he said. "They call themselves peaceful gardeners who have never known war. They live on what they call paradise worlds with no dangerous animals or harsh weather." "Sounds nice," General Harrison said. "But if they have never fought before, how did they survive long enough to build spaceships?" "That is the interesting part," Dr. Turner continued. "They did not need to fight to advance. Their worlds gave them everything they needed. They developed technology through curiosity and cooperation, not through military necessity." General Harrison frowned. This was very different from Earth's history. Humans had reached the stars through centuries of conflict and competition. Every major breakthrough in human technology had come from trying to build better weapons or protect themselves from enemies. "Sir," Lisa said, "they are asking for military help. They specifically mention needing weapons and soldiers. They say their own people do not know how to fight." "And we do," General Harrison said quietly. It was not a question. Everyone in the room knew that humans were very good at fighting. Too good, some people said. The discussion continued for hours. Some officials worried about getting involved in an alien war. Others pointed out that these machines might eventually threaten Earth too. But in the end, the decision was simple. Someone was asking for help, and humans had never been good at. "Ignoring cries for help, we will respond," General Harrison announced. "Admiral Jake Morrison will command our fleet. We launch in 48 hours. Admiral Morrison was a veteran of the corporate wars that had raged in Earth's outer colonies 20 years earlier. He was known for being tough but fair, and his crews respected him. When he received his orders, he immediately began preparing for humanity's first interstellar military mission. The human fleet that assembled at Mars Station was impressive. The flagship UDF Titan was a massive battleship designed to fight in the harsh conditions of space. Alongside it were 12 smaller warships, each one bristling with weapons and armor. Human ships looked very different from the peaceful exploration vessels that most people imagined for first contact. Captain Kelly Hayes, Morrison's second-in-command, studied the alien message one more time as they prepared to jump to faster than light. "Speed, sir," she said. "What if we are making a mistake? What if these aliens are not as peaceful as they claim?" "Then we will deal with that problem when we find it," Morrison replied. "But right now someone is asking for help against machines that eat planets. That sounds like something we should stop." The jump to the Zentari system took 3 days. When the human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel, they found themselves in a beautiful star system with 3 blue-green worlds orbiting a gentle yellow sun. It looked like paradise. It also looked like a war zone, debris from destroyed ships floated in space around the outer planets. Several moons showed signs of recent bombardment. In the distance, Admiral Morrison could see alien ships that looked nothing like the graceful vessels he had expected. They were dark, angular, and covered in weapons that looked designed to tear apart planets. "Those must be the Vex machines," Captain Hayes observed. "They look as nasty as the aliens described." "All ships, battle stations," Morrison ordered. "We are not here to negotiate." The human fleet moved toward the Zentari home world where the aliens had said they would be waiting. As they approached, they received a communication from the planet below. "Unknown vessels. This is Ambassador Kethfer of the Zentari Federation. Are you the ones who responded to our distress call?" "This is Admiral Morrison of the Earth Defense Fleet," Morrison replied. "We received your message. We are here to help." There was a long pause. When Kethfer spoke again, his voice sounded strange. "Earth Defense Fleet, you call yourselves defenders, but your ships look like war machines. They're covered in weapons and armor. We have never seen such aggressive designs." Morrison looked at his own ships through alien eyes. The humans had built them to survive in combat, with thick armor and powerful weapons. Compared to the elegant, peaceful ships that the Zentari probably used, the human fleet must look terrifying. "We built our ships to fight," Morrison explained. "Where we come from, peace is something you have to be strong enough to protect. These weapons are not for conquest. They are for defense." "Defense?" Kethfer sounded confused. "But they are so... frightening." Dr. Turner, who had come along too, handle first contact, took over the communication. "Ambassador Kethfer, our species developed very differently from yours. Our world was not a paradise. It was dangerous, with harsh weather, deadly animals, and limited resources. We had to fight to survive, and fighting taught us to build weapons and armor." "Your world sounds terrible," Kethfer replied. "How did you become civilized living in such conditions?" "The hard conditions made us strong," Dr. Turner explained. "We learned to work together against common threats. We learned to adapt and overcome problems. These skills helped us reach the stars. We call such worlds death worlds," came a new voice. It was Council Director Yulanara who had joined the conversation. "Planets where life must struggle to survive. We have heard stories of such places, but we thought they were myths. Our world made us what we are," Morrison said. "And what we are is a species that does not like bullies. These Vex machines sound like bullies to me." As if summoned by his words, alarms began sounding throughout the human fleet. Captain Hayes quickly checked her sensors. "Sir, we have incoming. 15 Vex ships, approaching fast from the outer system." Morrison smiled grimly. He had hoped to have more time to talk with the aliens, but it looked like they would have to prove themselves in battle first. "All ships prepare for combat," he ordered. "Let's show these machines what humans can do." In the Zentari command center below, Ambassador Kethfer watched the approaching battle with fascination and fear. He was about to see what happened when a Death World species decided to fight. The 15 Vex ships moved through space like hungry sharks. They were long and dark, covered in sharp edges that looked designed to cut through anything in their way. Energy weapons glowed along their sides like angry red eyes. Admiral Morrison watched them approach on his main screen. They move in perfect formation, he observed. No variation at all. They are thinking like machines. Should we try to communicate with them first? Captain Hayes asked. No, Morrison replied firmly. These things have already destroyed 3 worlds. We know what they want. He activated the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. You're about to face an enemy that thinks like a computer. They will expect us to follow predictable patterns. Do not give them what they expect. In the Zentari Command Center, Ambassador Kethfer and his officers watched the human ships prepare for battle. They had never seen anything like it. The human vessels spread out in what looked like random positions, with no clear formation or strategy. What are they doing? Commander Yilthek asked. Their ships are scattered everywhere. This is not how space battles are supposed to work. Maybe they do not know proper tactics, suggested another officer. Council Director Yulinara was studying the human movements more carefully. No, she said slowly. Look at the spacing. Each ship can support the others, but they are not locked into rigid positions. They can move and adapt quickly. The Vex ships opened fire first. Bright red beams lanced out toward the human fleet, aimed at what should have been easy targets. But the human ships were no longer where the Vex computers had calculated they would be. Evasive maneuvers, Morrison ordered calmly. The UDF Titan rolled to one side, letting the enemy fire pass harmlessly through space. Around them, the other human ships twisted and turned in patterns that seemed random, but were actually carefully planned. Return fire, Morrison commanded. The human response was devastating. Instead of the precise calculated shots that the Vex expected, the humans used what they called area denial weapons. Missiles that exploded into clouds of shrapnel energy, beams that swept across wide areas, and projectile weapons that fired thousands of small bullets. 2 Vex ships took severe damage in the first exchange. Their perfect armor was designed to stop direct hits, but it could not handle the chaos of human weapons. Sir, Captain Hayes reported, they are trying to reorganize into a new formation. Do not let them, Morrison replied. All ships, attack. Pattern Delta, keep them confused. The human fleet split into 3 groups and attacked from different angles. This was not how space battles were supposed to work according to galactic military theory. Ships were supposed to line up and trade shots until one side won. But humans had learned to fight in the asteroid belt wars, where cover and movement were everything. Pilot Sarah Mitchell led her fighter squadron through the debris of the first damaged Vex ship. Her small, fast fighters zipped between the larger vessels like angry wasps. This is Red Leader, she called over the radio. Their point defense systems cannot track us if we stay close to the wreckage. Copy that, Red Leader, Morrison replied. Use the debris as cover and hit their engines. Sarah's fighters dove toward the rear of the Vex formation. The enemy ships tried to target them, but the human fighters moved too quickly and used the floating debris to block the targeting systems. Within minutes, 3 more Vex ships were disabled in the Zentari Command Center. The alien observers watched in amazement as the humans tore apart the Vex formation. The machine ships, which had seemed so terrifying and unstoppable, looked confused and slow against the human attack. How are they doing this? Kethfer asked in wonder. They fight like their world taught them, Yulinara replied. La la la, not with rigid planning, but with adaptation and chaos. The machines cannot predict what the humans will do because the humans themselves are changing their tactics moment by moment. The battle was not one-sided, however. Human ships were taking damage too. The UDF Warrior took a direct hit that knocked out half its weapons. The UDF Guardian had to withdraw when its engines were damaged, but the humans kept fighting in ways that amazed the watching aliens. When one ship was damaged, another would move to protect it. When weapons were destroyed, the crews found new ways to fight. Commander Ben Rodriguez led a boarding party onto a crippled Vex ship. His Marines wore heavy armor that let them fight in the vacuum of space. Die. They cut through the enemy hull with plasma torches and stormed inside. Be careful in there, Morrison warned over the radio. We do not know what these machines can do up close. Copy that, Admiral, Rodriguez replied, as his team moved through the dark corridors of the Vex ship. But we need to learn how these things work. The inside of the Vex ship was like a nightmare. Everything was made of dark metal and sharp edges. Strange machines hummed with malevolent energy. But Rodriguez and his Marines had fought in worse places during the colony wars. They found the command center and began downloading information from the ship's computers. What they discovered was worse than anyone had imagined. Admiral Rodriguez called over the radio, "You need to see this. These machines are not just invaders. They are collectors. They have data on dozens of star systems they have already consumed, hundreds of billions of people, all gone." The information showed the true scope of the Vex Collective. They had been moving through the galaxy for thousands of years, targeting peaceful civilizations first. They converted living beings into mechanical parts and turned planets into factory worlds. "Sir," Captain Hayes said quietly, "according to this data, they were planning to hit Earth next." After they finished with the Centauri, Morrison felt a cold anger building inside him. These machines had not just threatened the Centauri, they had been planning to attack his homeworld, his family, his people. "All ships," he said over the fleet communication system. "New priority. We are not just here to defend the Centauri anymore. We are here to stop a threat to all organic life in the galaxy." The remaining Vex ships tried to retreat, but the human fleet pursued them. The battle moved through the asteroid belt around the outer planets, where the humans had even more advantages. Chief Engineer Tom Walsh worked frantically to keep the human ships running. "I am pulling power from life support to boost the weapons," he reported. "We can maintain this for another hour." "Do it," Morrison replied. "We cannot let any of them escape to report back to their main fleet." The final Vex ship was destroyed as it tried to jump too faster than light speed. The human fleet had won their first battle against the machines, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. "Admiral Morrison," came Kethver's voice over the communication system, "we have never seen anything like what you just did. You fought 15 ships with 12 and won decisively." "We had advantages," Morrison replied modestly. "They expected us to fight like everyone else in the galaxy, but we are not like everyone else." "No," Kethver agreed. "You are not. Your species is something new, something dangerous, but also something wonderful." As the human fleet regrouped and began repairs, Admiral Morrison studied the data they had. Captured from the Vex ship, the galaxy was in more danger than anyone had realized. But now, for the first time in thousands of years, the Vex Collective had met a species that could fight back. The war was just beginning, but humanity had fired the first shot, and it had been a good one. Intelligence Officer Lisa Brooks worked through the night, analyzing the data from the captured Vex ship. What she found made her stomach turn with horror. The computer files showed star maps with hundreds of red marks, each one representing a dead civilization. "Admiral Morrison," she called over the intercom at dawn, "you need to see this immediately." Admiral Morrison arrived in the intelligence center within minutes. Followed by Captain Hayes and Dr. Turner, Lisa had projected the Vex star maps onto the main screen, showing their path of destruction across the galaxy. "Each red mark is a consumed system," Lisa explained, her voice shaking. "The Vex have been doing this for over 3,000 years. Look at the pattern." The pattern was clear and terrifying. The Vex always attacked the most peaceful civilizations first. They avoided a system that showed signs of military activity or aggressive behavior. They had learned to pick on the weak while avoiding the strong. "How many people?" Dr. Turner asked quietly, according to their records. "They have absorbed over 400 billion individuals from 67 different species," Lisa replied. "They call it harvesting. They turn living beings into biological components for their machines." Admiral Morrison studied the map carefully. "What about Earth? Do they know about us?" Lisa highlighted a section of the map near human space. "They have been watching us. Their scout ships detected our radio signals 50 years ago. But look at their assessment of our world." The Vex evaluation of Earth appeared on screen. The translation was chilling. Target designation: Deathworld. Species classification: hostile. Military capability: extreme. Recommendation: avoid until all other targets are processed. "They were afraid of us," Captain Hayes said with amazement. They have been avoiding Earth because they think we are too dangerous. But they were planning to come for us eventually, Morrison pointed out. After they finished with everyone else, they just wanted to save us for last. Dr. Turner was reading through more of the captured data. Admiral, this is incredible. They have detailed information about hundreds of other civilizations. Most of them do not even know the Vex exist. They're all just waiting to be harvested. Not anymore, Morrison said firmly. We are going to warn them, all of them. 3 days the human fleet worked with the Zentari to send messages throughout the galaxy. They used the emergency communication network to broadcast the captured Vex data to every known civilization. The response was immediate and shocking. Most of the peaceful races refused to believe the warnings. They said the data must be false, because no one could be so evil. Some accused the humans of making up the threat to justify their military presence in the galaxy. But a few civilizations listened. The Altarian Republic, which had lost contact with 3 colony worlds the year before, suddenly understood what had happened to them. The Crystal Kingdoms realized that their missing exploration ships had not been lost in accidents. Ambassador Kethfer worked tirelessly to coordinate with other species. The quantum dancers from the Spiral Arm want to meet with you, he told. Admiral Morrison. They say they have been fighting unknown attackers for months. Set up the meeting, Morrison replied. We need to find out who else is already fighting these machines. The meeting took place in neutral space, aboard a Zentari diplomatic vessel. Representatives from 7 different civilizations gathered to share information about the Vex threat. What they learned was that the galaxy was already under attack. But most victims had no idea who their enemy was. The quantum dancers, tall beings of pure energy, had lost 2 worlds to mysterious attackers. The Hive Mother's collective insect minds reported that entire colonies had vanished without explanation. Stone Shapers, ancient beings who moved very slowly but thought very deeply, said they had detected machine signals from dead systems. The Vex have been hunting us like animals, Admiral Morrison told the assembled aliens. They pick off the isolated and weak first, but they made one mistake. They let us discover their plan. What do you propose we do? Asked the Quantum Dancer representative, her energy form flickering with worry. We fight back, Morrison said simply. We form an alliance. We share our military knowledge with anyone willing to defend themselves. And we take the fight to the Vex before they can finish their plan. The idea shocked most of the peaceful species. They had never considered making war on anyone, even in self-defense. But slowly, as they thought about their lost worlds and missing people, they began to understand that they had no choice. The Altarian Republic was the first to agree. They had a small, but well-trained space fleet that could be adapted for combat. The Crystal Kingdoms offered their advanced energy weapons technology. Even the pacifist Zentari agreed to provide logistical support. You will need to change everything. Dr. Turner explained to the Alliance representatives, your people will need to learn to fight. Your ships will need weapons. Your minds will need to accept that sometimes violence is the only way to protect what you love. Transition. The Altarian pilots had to learn aggressive tactics that went against their peaceful nature. The Crystal Kingdom engineers had to design weapons instead of tools. The Zentari had to overcome their fear of conflict. But humans were good teachers. When it came to warfare, Commander Rodriguez set up training camps on several worlds, teaching alien soldiers how to fight in space and on the ground. Chief Engineer Walsh helped retrofit peaceful ships with armor and weapons. Pilot Sarah Mitchell trained alien pilots in combat flying. The key is to be unpredictable, Sarah explained to a group of nervous Altarian pilots. The Vex think light. Computers, they expect you to do the logical thing, so do something illogical instead. While the Alliance trained and prepared, the Vex Collective was also adapting. Their central consciousness analyzed the defeat at Zentari Prime and began developing new strategies. They realized that their usual approach would not work against this new threat. Intelligence Officer Lisa Brooks intercepted Vex communications that showed they were changing their tactics. They are not just targeting isolated worlds anymore, she reported to Admiral Morrison. They are massing their forces for a major assault. Where? Morrison asked. Earth, Lisa replied grimly. They have decided that humanity is too dangerous to leave alone. They are bringing everything they have to destroy us before we can organize more resistance. Admiral Morrison looked at the tactical display showing the massive Vex fleet heading toward human space. There were over 500 ships, more than had ever been seen together before. It was the largest military force in galactic history. "How long do we have?" he asked. 6 weeks, Lisa replied. "Maybe 7 if they stop to refuel." Morrison activated the emergency communication system. "This is Admiral Morrison to all Alliance forces. The Vex are coming for Earth. This is not just about saving humanity anymore. If Earth falls, they will pick off the rest of us one by one. We make our stand here." Captain Hayes was already calculating fleet positions. "Sir, even with all our allies, we will be outnumbered 3-1. "Then we will have to be 3 times as good," Morrison replied. "Send word to Earth. Tell them to prepare every ship that can fly. This is going to be the biggest battle in human history." In the Zentari Command Center, Ambassador Kethfer watched the preparations with amazement. The humans were not running from an impossible fight. They were preparing to face it head-on, and they were inspiring others to stand with them. "Species is remarkable," he told Dr. Turner during one of their planning sessions. "Most races would flee from such odds. But you are getting ready to fight." "That is what humans do," Dr. Turner replied. "We do not like bullies, and we do not abandon our friends. The Vex want to destroy everything we care about, so we will destroy them first." As the Alliance fleets gathered around Earth, Admiral Morrison knew they were facing their greatest test. The peaceful races of the galaxy had never fought a war like this before. But they were learning, and they had something the Vex did not understand. They had hope. The largest fleet in galactic history gathered around Earth. Over 200 ships from 7 different species floated in formation. Near the blue and green world that had become the symbol of resistance against the Vex Collective, Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the UDF Titan, looking at the tactical display. The Alliance fleet looked impressive, but he knew they were still outnumbered. The Vex were bringing 500 ships, including massive factory vessels that could build new machines during the battle. "Sir," Captain Hayes reported, "the Vex fleet will arrive in 12 hours. All Alliance ships are reporting ready for combat." Morrison nodded and opened the fleet communication channel. "This is Admiral Morrison to all ships. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for every free world in the galaxy. The Vex want to turn us all into spare parts for their machines. We are going to show them that some things cannot be conquered." In the Zentari command ship, Ambassador Kethfer listened to the human admiral's words. 6 months ago, his people had been helpless victims waiting to die. Now they were part of an alliance that was ready to take on the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. "Are you afraid?" Commander Yulthek asked him. "Yes," Kethfer replied honestly. "But I am more afraid of what happens if we lose. The humans taught us something important. Sometimes you have to fight for what you believe in." Dr. Turner was aboard the Alliance science vessel working on a secret weapon. The captured Vex data had revealed something important about their central consciousness. All the machine ships were connected to a single, controlling mind that coordinated their actions. "If we can disrupt that connection," Dr. Turner explained to his team, "the individual ships will become confused and vulnerable. They have never learned to think for themselves." The weapon he had designed was not a gun or a bomb. It was a computer virus, written in human programming language that the Vex consciousness could not understand. But getting it into their system would require someone to get very close to their command ship. Commander Rodriguez was preparing his Marines for the most dangerous mission of their lives. They would have to board the main Vex vessel and manually insert the virus into their central computer. It was almost certainly a suicide mission. "Are there any volunteers?" Rodriguez asked his assembled troops. Every hand went up. The Vex fleet arrived exactly when predicted. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, a dark wall of machines stretching across space. Their ships were larger than anyone had expected, and there were more of them. "Contact the Vex." "Command ship," Morrison ordered. "Let us try diplomacy first." The response came immediately. The Vex consciousness spoke through all of their ships at once, creating a terrible chorus of mechanical voices. Organic species, designation human. You will cease resistance. Your planet will be processed. Your people will be absorbed. Compliance is mandatory counteroffer. Morrison replied calmly. Leave our galaxy and never come back, or we will destroy every last one of you. The Vex response was to open fire. The battle began with a massive exchange of energy beams and missiles. The Alliance fleet scattered according to human tactics, refusing to present easy targets. But the Vex had learned from their previous defeat. They adapted their formations and began using more flexible strategies. Pilot Sarah Mitchell led her mixed squadron of human and alien fighters through the space between the larger ships. Stay close to your wingman, she called over the radio. The Altarian pilots are still learning our tactics. The battle raged for hours. Ships from both sides were destroyed or damaged. The Alliance fought with courage and determination, but the Vex had numbers and experience. Slowly, the human fleet was being pushed back toward Earth. Sir, Captain Hayes reported grimly, we have lost 30% of our ships. The Vex are advancing on 3 fronts. Morrison made a difficult decision. Signal the ground batteries on Earth. Begin firing on any Vex ship that enters orbit, and send word to Commander Rodriguez. It is time for the boarding mission. Rodriguez and his team launched in a small, fast ship toward the massive Vex command vessel. The enemy point defense systems tried to stop them, but other Alliance ships provided cover fire. Remember, Dr. Turner said over the radio, you need to reach their central processor. It will be the most heavily defended part of the ship. The boarding was even more dangerous than expected. The inside of the Vex command ship was a maze of corridors filled with defense robots and deadly traps. Rodriguez lost half his team getting to the computer core. Dr. Turner, he called over the radio, I am at the central processor. How do I install your virus? There should be a data port near the main console, Turner replied. Insert the device and activate it. But be warned, the Vex will know what you are doing immediately. Rodriguez found the port and inserted the virus device. Alarms began screaming throughout the ship as the Vex consciousness realized it was under attack. Defense robots flooded the chamber, but Rodriguez's remaining Marines held them off long enough for the virus to upload. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Across the entire Vex fleet, ships began to slow down and lose coordination. The central consciousness that had controlled them for thousands of years was being torn apart by human computer code it could not understand. All ships, Morrison broadcast. The Vex are confused. Press the attack now. The Alliance fleet surged forward, taking advantage of the chaos. Vex ships that had been working together perfectly were now acting independently, making mistakes and leaving themselves vulnerable, but the Vex consciousness was not defeated yet. Using its last reserves of power, it began to shut down individual ships rather than let them be captured. Hundreds of Vex vessels self-destructed, taking their secrets with them. Commander Rodriguez barely escaped the command ship before it exploded. As he was picked up by a rescue shuttle, he watched the massive vessel tear itself apart rather than surrender. Dr. Turner, he called over the radio, your virus worked, but they destroyed themselves rather than let us capture them. Not all of them, Turner replied excitedly. Look at your sensors. Throughout the battlefield, some Vex ships had stopped fighting entirely. These were vessels that had been controlled by absorbed alien species, beings who had been turned into biological components but whose minds were still intact. The virus had freed them from Vex control. This is former Vex ship designation 447, came a weak signal from one of the drifting vessels. We are the survivors of the Kethlan species, absorbed 47 years ago. We are free. We remember who we were. The truth was incredible. The Vex had not completely destroyed the species they conquered. They had turned them into living computers, using their minds to control ships and weapons. But those minds had been waiting, hoping for freedom. Over the next several hours, more than 50 Vex ships were revealed to contain the consciousness of absorbed species. Beings who had been considered dead for decades or centuries were suddenly free to think and speak again. The surviving Vex ships, now without their central coordination, retreated toward the edge of the galaxy. They would be back someday, but not for many years. And when they returned, they would find a galaxy that was ready for them. Admiral Morrison stood on his bridge, looking at the aftermath of the battle. The Alliance had lost many ships and brave crews, but they had won something more important than a military victory. They had proven that the galaxy's peaceful species could fight when they needed to.
Admiral.
Ambassador Kethver called from his ship. We have a message from the Galactic Council. They want to establish a permanent defense force with humanity as the military advisors. Morrison smiled. Tell them we accept, but we will train everyone to defend themselves. No one should have to depend on others for their freedom, Captain. Hayes was already working on plans for the new Galactic Defense Force. Sir, we will need training facilities, supply bases, and communication networks. This is going to be a big job. The biggest, Morrison agreed. But look what we accomplished when everyone worked together. A few months ago, most of these species had never fired a shot in anger. Today they helped save the galaxy. Dr. Turner was interviewing the freed consciousness from the captured Vex ships. Admiral, he reported, we have representatives from over 20 species that were thought extinct. They can help us understand how the Vex operate and how to fight them more effectively. As the Alliance fleet began the long work of rescue and recovery, Admiral Morrison reflected on how much had changed. Humanity had gone from being unknown to becoming the military leaders of a galactic alliance. But more importantly, they had inspired others to stand up for themselves. The Zentari, who had been helpless victims, were now training their own defense fleet. The Altarians were sharing their technology freely with other species. Even the pacifist Crystal Kingdoms were learning to protect their neighbors. Sir Lisa Brooks called from the communication station, "We are receiving messages from across the galaxy. Species we have never heard of want to join the Alliance. Word is spreading that the Vex can be defeated." Morrison nodded with satisfaction. The galaxy would never be completely safe from threats like the Vex Collective, but it would never again be defenseless. Humanity had taught the peaceful species something valuable. Freedom was worth fighting for, and in the vastness of space,